Hello and welcome to another edition of the Comic Anthologist. And if you're tuning in for the first time, please hit the subscribe button to show your support. Now today we are going to discuss basically what has been in the media since this came out last summer,
The Thanos effect.
and the movie that came out with him being in it, with him being the lead of this film, was the Infinity War.
All you have to do is... So, in any case, yeah, with a lot of people getting Thanos and everything, well, that's the trend these days.
Well, I thought that was called the Great Disappearance.
No, it's the Thanos effect. You're getting Thanosed.
Basically, you're just winking out of existence when that happens.
Yeah, just snap your finger, and if you could just eliminate all your problems like that, there would be a lot of people.
Boy, that would be so nice if you could do that.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Getting back to the main point, we're going to discuss the main foundation of the Infinity War, which was the Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity War, and Infinity, and Thanos Quest.
Actually, not. Infinity War.
Well, in name only.
In name only, yeah, because the Infinity Gauntlet, what you see on the screen, Avengers Infinity War, I know it came out earlier this year, but I'm talking about it because I don't know a lot of people brought that up, what the movie's based off of. The film is based off of three particular key issues or key series that came out over the years, starting in 1990 with the Thanos Quest. Yes. The Thanos Quest came out before Infinity Gauntlet.
And that was a 2-issue limited series.
Right, exactly. And basically, also in the pages of the Silver Surfer back in the day, Death had resurrected Thanos because his character had been dead for a long time. Mm-hmm. And so Death resurrected Thanos because Death sensed there was an imbalance in the universe.
So she brought him back basically to bring back balance to the universe, but it had a little bit of a detrimental effect.
Right, exactly. So basically, when Thanos came back, he knew a way to take on this Herculean task of basically eliminating half the universe. And so what he did was he basically stole the Infinity Gems, which they were called back in 1990.
Long before they were called the Infinity Stones.
Basically.
Yes.
And so he stole the gems from each of the Grandmasters of the universe. And the movie already gone into the Reality Stone, the Time Stone, Soul Stone, Power Stone,
the Mind Stone,
and then
the Soul Stone.
And the Soul Stone. So, with that being said, the Thanos Quest covered that. It was like a galactic heist, if you want to call it that. And then, right after the Thanos Quest was then the story known as the Infinity Gauntlet.
And I think everybody knows about the Infinity Gauntlet because a lot of the stuff that you see in the movie did take place in the first issue of the Infinity Gauntlet.
Because it was a 6-issue limited series that came out in 1990 as well. And so when that came out, in the first issue, and for everyone who hasn't seen Infinity War, I don't know if you guys are under a rock or anything.
This is a big
Just
spoiler.
cover your ears, and this is a big spoiler that I just la 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 la. But in any case, in the first issue, Thanos does this and basically wipes out half the universe just from the snap. Unlike the film, where at the very end he snaps his finger once he acquired all the Infinity Stones and blinked everyone out of existence.
And let's not forget, there was a lot of ecological disasters that took place on the planet prior to him snapping his finger to wipe out half the population. And when that took place, Iron Man was only able, he was one of the major characters in this story, Iron Man was only to save one couple after the entire island. What was that, Hawaii?
Oh, that wasn't Iron Man, that was Namorita. Because Iron Man was flying over the islands of Japan.
And he was basically
basically there was a big major tidal wave that basically wiped out the whole islands of Japan.
And Namorita was only able to save one couple. Iron Man felt the pulse. Anybody that was sensitive to anything that was going on in the world, Spider-Man, his spider sense went completely off the grid. I mean, it just went berserker because basically Thanos was doing what he was doing, and it just messed everything up, ecologically and physically.
But this is also before he did the snap in the Infinity Gauntlet, because what he did was one of Death's acolytes, or someone that was speaking for Death, basically pissed him off. And so when he wanted Death to speak to her, he let his emotions get the better of him and destroyed a nearby star, but that shockwave is what affected Earth right before he did the snap. Or after the snap. I got to read the book
I
again.
think it was before the snap. It had to be before the snap because the population hadn't been wiped out. You just saw nothing but disasters happening around the planet because of that wave.
Right. But see, they didn't highlight that in the film. And now in the third story that Infinity War is based off from is the series called Infinity. And basically Thanos and the Black Order basically invaded Earth, kind of like what they did in Wakanda in the film. But this was on a major scale where Thanos invaded Earth to search for his long-lost son to kill him, his son Thane. But, of course, they didn't incorporate that into the film.
Of course they're not going to incorporate that because they had to make Thanos the main object of the film.
Right.
To tell the story.
Exactly. And to see, the whole thing is about that was they pulled the invasion elements out of Infinity from that particular story.
I do remember reading about that, yes.
And so they pulled the whole invasion aspect out of Infinity, and that's what you see in the Battle of Wakanda, and partially again on the battle in Titan as well in the film. So they kind of cribbed and then made it their own. So when you're like being a filmmaker, when they're making films and they're taking bits and pieces of story elements or whatever to make it into a cohesive storyline, one thing they have to do is they have to make it relatable for the general public. You can't just do it all for just the fanboys like us, but there's certain things you have to give like certain kind of leeway so that way it could be accessible to everyone and not just for fanboys. And so that when those three stories were combined, they took out the best elements of each of those stories, of those three stories, to make Infinity War.
Okay, let me ask you this to interject.
Okay.
What was your favorite part of that story in terms of Infinity or the Infinity Gauntlet, which kind of just resonated with you that you saw in the movie, besides the snap?
The heroes fighting Thanos.
Yes.
But the heroes in the book were fighting Thanos on a kind of planetoid type thing that, or how should I say it? A throne type.
It was a throne world for Thanos to
Thanos
basically oversee everything that he was doing.
Right.
Like you said, it was Death, Mephisto, and Thanos himself. And Thanos had given himself a 6% chance margin.
0.06% chance.
Okay, 0.06% chance margin of losing to the heroes, so that way he could make it a fair fight.
And basically, he still wiped the floor with the heroes. Spider-Man got killed. Iron Man got his head ripped off.
And then Captain America was literally bashed and beaten to death by Thanos.
Namor and She-Hulk, well, they got eaten alive by some kind of mold.
There's a brown mold.
Exactly.
The Hulk was turned into a miniature type version of himself.
Right.
And then there was
Nova, the Guardian, one of the Guardians of Xandar. He got turned into cubes.
And then
Thor got turned into glass.
And he shattered that glass statue of
so
Thor.
all the heroes lost. So kind of like what happened in the film to a degree. Everybody still lost. Thanos still won. So that's the whole thing about the Infinity War that came out earlier this year. And one other thing too is that instead of the movie being named Infinity Gauntlet, they pulled it from the sequel to Infinity Gauntlet that came out back in 91, 92, between 91 and 92, called The Infinity War, and was only in name only because that sequel dealt with one of the major characters in Infinity Gauntlet that basically, when he got a hold of the Infinity Gauntlet, his personality split into two, the good half and the bad half.
Which is one of my other favorite characters, which is what I was about to interject, was Adam Warlock.
Right.
He was basically split into, it was Adam Warlock, the Magus, which was his dark side.
Right.
And then you had the goddess. And that was basically the crux of the three that made up the three stories of the Infinity Gauntlet trilogy.
Right.
Now, how it played out totally, though, is that the Magus did some dastardly things in terms of creating doppelgangers of the heroes in order to further his own agenda.
And what I liked about this, just about that particular story with Infinity War in the comic books, because a lot of people don't know that, it was the heroes versus their dark side. So you had an evil version of Iron Man versus a good version. The bad version of the Hulk fighting a good version. And so forth and so on. A bad Wolverine fighting a good Wolverine. A bad Spider-Man fighting a good Spider-Man. So everyone was fighting their dark sides in that book. And so, but it didn't play out in the film because they just took that from the name, in the name only.
Yeah, there was no way they could be able to pull that off and putting the doppelgangers and the actual characters themselves. So,
Yeah.
of course, certain things had to be left out when they made this film.
Right.
But it still made for some great storytelling when they did the Infinity Trilogy back in the day.
Well, ultimately, the movie Avengers: Infinity War still ultimately is still based off of Infinity Gauntlet.
Through and through. But with a heist twist.
Right. Exactly. So, with that being said, you got any final words?
No final words except that it's a great movie. Go out there and check it out.
If you hadn't seen it yet.
You haven't seen it if you've been living under a rock. But before you even do that, please check out Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity, and Infinity War. And if you really have...
And the Thanos Quest.
And the Thanos Quest. Excuse me, yes, thank you, because I just talked about that earlier. And if you really are a glutton for punishment, then you throw in the Thanos, not the Thanos Quest, but the Infinity Crusade, which was a little bit more philosophical version of the first two. But I'm telling you, the first two books, boom.
The first two series, yeah.
Yes, it hit very, very hard along with the Thanos Quest.
Yeah.
But this is the Comic Anthologist. And if you're tuning in for the first time, once again, please hit the subscribe button. And if you need to reach us or have any questions for what we have just discussed, you could reach us at thecomicanthologist@gmail.com. Signing off, peace.
Peace.